Cupra is a company really starting to find its feet here in the UK, and despite having only been a standalone brand separate from Seat for a few years now, it's already produced its first fully electric vehicle, and it's this, the Born. Now it shares a platform with the Volkswagen ID.3 and the Audi Q4 e-tron, but it has some distinctly Cupra-esque elements to it to make sure that it stands out from the rest of the crowd. So, to find out what it's like, we've come to GridServe in Braintree, the UK's first electric car forecourt, to see just what this latest EV has to offer and whether it can stand out in this very populated market. Cupra has really pushed the styling of the Born to help it stand out, and that's noticeable pretty much the whole way around the car. Now, moving along the flank, we've got these really large alloy wheels, and the whole car sits lower than you might expect, and that's because of the sporty suspension. Got these nice contrast colour wing mirrors, and then moving to the front, it all tapers down into quite a sharp nose. Overall, I think it looks really cool, but that's just down to me. Now, as I've already mentioned, the Born is on the same platform as the Volkswagen ID.3 and the Audi Q4 e-tron, so the fundamentals in here are pretty much the same. We've got a 12-inch touchscreen in the middle, and that houses basically everything in terms of menus, media, navigation, and I find it a little bit too complicated. It'd be nice to have some physical buttons, at least for the heating and ventilation controls, because they're touch sensitive and they're just a bit tricky to use on the move. However, the system itself is packed with features, so you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that means that integrating your smartphone is really simple. You've also got a secondary, smaller display ahead of you, and that just gives you your battery and your remaining range. Overall, the fit and finish is good. We've got lots of copper-coloured touches, and also there's plenty of space too. This bin down here is massive, and there's a second set for cup holders and just oddment storage ahead of you, so it's going to be quite practical to use too. These seats are finished in recycled materials, which backs up the eco-credentials of an electric car, and actually they're really supportive and they're nicely bolstered without being too overly sporty. Overall, it is a nice cabin. I just think that a couple of physical controls for heating and ventilation would help boost it in terms of usability and user-friendliness if you've never driven a car with this kind of tech before. It's in the back of the car where you really notice the benefits of this dedicated electric platform. There's loads of space back here, and given its quite compact exterior dimensions, that's really impressive. The seats in my position, I'm just under 6 foot, and I've got loads of foot room, loads of knee room, and actually plenty of headroom too. The seats are pretty flat, but they're still comfortable and well cushioned. Plus, because there's no big transmission tunnel, the person sat in the middle isn't going to be short of space either. In terms of connectivity and charging options, you've got 2 USB-C chargers in the middle and some decent sized storage bins at the side too. Overall, really impressive. There are a variety of different specifications of Born available, but the one we're driving today is expected to be one of the most popular, and it gets a 201 brake horsepower electric motor and a 58 kilowatt hour battery. So what does that mean in terms of performance? Well, you're getting 0 to 60 miles an hour in around about 7.1 seconds, which is actually pretty quick. And in fact, when you utilise all of that electric powertrain, it feels quite a bit faster than it looks on paper. When it comes to range, we're talking around about 260 miles from a single charge. Now, of course, that will depend on the temperature that you're driving in, because colder weather really does tend to affect these batteries. Compared with the ID.3, on which this car shares its platform, the Born is significantly stiffer. Now, Cupra has attempted to put a slightly more sportier effect into the way the Born drives, and that's definitely noticeable, particularly on roads like the ones we're on today. It does tend to feel a little bit jostly when the surface is a bit bumpy. But byproduct of that is really nice body control, and actually driving through twisty turns, the Born is staying very composed and very level. That makes it quite exciting to drive. Of course, you've got instant acceleration from that torque that arrives straight away as soon as you hit the pedal, but I do think that some people are going to find this jostly ride just a little bit too much for day-to-day driving, and that is where the ID.3 is going to appeal slightly more. However, you do get a sense that this car does feel slightly more set up towards sportier driving. And so what that does mean is that if you are after an EV which does feel, well, just a little bit more exciting to drive, then the Born is going to be a good option. Of course, you've got different modes and different menus to navigate through. The screen for me is just a little bit too complicated to be using on the move. It's a little bit too complex, and there are so many features within it that to do what you want to do means taking your eyes off the road for too long, and that's something that, well, is just not safe. The good thing is with the Born is that you are getting a decent amount of charging speed, so it's actually rated to 125 kilowatts, which means that you could do a 5 to 80% charge at an appropriate charger in around about 35 minutes. Plug the Born into a 7 kilowatt home charger, and we expect that to be around 8 hours. If you've got a more powerful 3-phase 11 kilowatt charger, then we're talking around about 6 hours. But realistically, most people are going to have that 7 kilowatt charger at home. If you plugged it into a 3-pin, which isn't really recommended, we're probably talking overnight and into the next day in order to get any realistic charge into it. When it comes to visibility, things are a little bit impaired. We've got these really thick split A-pillars up front, and looking through them is okay, but you do have to look around them, particularly when you're going up to a roundabout or you're exiting a junction. I think that's going to get in the way quite a lot. At the back, you've got a decent enough view, and over the shoulder there is quite a chunky pillar there, but it's not too bad. I'd say realistically it's those A-pillars that are going to cause the most issues. So I do think the one drawback with the Born is just going to be that ride. It's noticeably firmer than with cars like the ID.3 and the Audi Q4 e-tron, and those are pretty firm cars to begin with. So even though this road that we're on now is not too bad, you're feeling quite a lot of the imperfections coming through into the car, and I think around town and at really slow speeds that's going to be quite uncomfortable. However, of course, if you are looking for an EV that feels somewhat sporty to drive, that firm ride might be a compromise that you are willing to put up with. Now, like the ID.3 and the Q4, the Born is rear-wheel drive, and as we know, most of the best sports cars are rear-wheel drive and adopt a rear-driven powertrain. How does that feel in the Born? Well, actually, on most occasions, if you're cornering quickly, not that I'm doing that right now, you can actually feel the car pushing itself from the rear, and that's quite a pleasant experience, and it makes the car feel a little bit more dynamic than you might expect. Cupra has definitely managed to inject some of its usual sporty character into the Born, both in the way it looks and in the way it drives. It's definitely the most dynamic in terms of handling compared with the cars that it shares its platform with, but that does come at the compromise of that firm ride, which might just be a bit too much for some people. However, if you are looking for an EV which manages to put a bit more fun into the whole driving experience, then the Born is well worth checking out. Thank you for watching this new car review on the Cupra Born. Now, if you have enjoyed this review, please give us a like and let us know what you think of this car in the comments sections below. And while you're here, please remember to subscribe to the Motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video.